Welcome back to the barbershop. I've got 10 crazy Tera combinations to share with you guys. Some are crazy cool, and some are crazy OP. Let's get into it. If this video can hit 100 likes, I'll share part 2 with you guys. So starting things off, I've got Fighting type Terallize. Now, why Fighting type Terallize, you might ask? Fighting, Ghost, and Fire has amazing perfect coverage, and Terallize's access to close combat gives it about the strongest fighting type coverage you can have. There are multiple sets you can run with Fighting type coverage. First of all, Fighting is going to invert that weakness to dark, right? So we're initially weak to dark with our ghost typing. We're going to flip that to fighting, get that fighting stab for close combat, and resist those dark type attacks. And although fighting is weak to psychic, it's not initially threatened by psychic, keeping it at bay with that ghost typing. It also is not threatened by fairy initially, which fighting is weak to with that fire typing. Also, that fighting type is going to hit rock types like Garganical that initially threatened Terallize. It also loses its water, ground, and ghost weaknesses, becoming pure fighting, so excellent for Terallize. Now, there are multiple sets that you can run with Terallize becoming a fighting type. Of course, you have the Focus Sash set here with Swords Dance, Shadow Sneak, Bitter Blade, the fire type with recovery, and close combat. On this one particular set, I do have weak armor. You get that speed boost when you're hit by a physical attack. Focus Sash. Now, you're going to want to dodge rocks. This is kind of reliant on, you know, maybe have a Great Tusk come spin or a Corviknight defog for you. You want to preserve that Focus Sash, get an SD up, and then really try to sweep things or catch something off guard with that close combat. The priority and sneak is great, and then the Bitter Blade hits very hard as well. Terallize also can run a choice banded set with this type of setup. Shadow Sneak, of course, is a staple. Close combat's going to be a staple as well. On this particular set, I have Flash Fire, as you're not really looking to boost the speed, but you can, of course, run weak armor here to boost that speed. You do drop a little bit of defense on that, so weak armor is a little bit better for a setup set, but having a fire immunity is, of course, great, especially if you're going to be a fire type and no longer resist. On a banded set like this, of course, you're going to want to run Shadow Sneak, close combat. Flare Blitz is an option to hit things very hard. I think most people would expect a Bitter Blade. Flare Blitz is going to really blow things back. Shadow Claw is an option. You do also have that Phantom Force. You know, it's like, it's a 2-turn. What are you going to do? It's going to hit hard, but, you know, it's going to give them an opportunity to switch into something. They may not know you're banded, but of course you can also run Bitter Blade. A few options there for a banded set. It's just going to hit really, really hard if you turn into a fighting type and hit close combat, predicting maybe a dark type to switch in, right? To check you like a Ting Lu or something. Now, a final set, just kind of to show you guys the different options you can do. It does also get taunt. It does also get bulk up. So on a set like this, you may not even run close combat. You may just utilize that defensive fighting type and bulk up with that recovery and Bitter Blade, that priority and Shadow Sneak. Put enough speed here to outspeed Jolly Breloom at 262 to dodge those spores, get a taunt off. With a bulk up off, you're not going to be very threatened by a Mach Punch. Now, there are a few other things you can run with Terallize. You can be an AV user, right? It can run Endure with that weak armor to boost that speed with a setup set. Of course, Life Orb is great, you know, for extra damage, Muscle Band. So there you go. There are a few options for fighting type Terallize. You can really play around with it, mix it up, Swords Dance, bulk up, you know, heavy duty boots, whatever you want on this guy. Focus Sash works great. Moving on, we have Dark type Corviknight. Okay, why Dark type Corviknight, you ask? First of all, the original idea of Dark type Corviknight is to be able to use Tera Blast to hit Gholdengo. Now, Gholdengo loves to Terastallize, right? But if it doesn't, I mean, Steel and Ghost typing is obviously great, but if it doesn't, Gholdengo is a standard check to Corviknight, right? With that ability, good as gold, it blocks defog, it blocks all of its stabs, and you're really just kind of forced to sit there or you turn out versus Gholdengo. But you catch him off guard, you turn Dark type, hit him with a Tera Blast. It does over 50%. If you're offensive, you can OHKO it, but if you're running defensive like this set, you're going to 2-hit KO that. And they are not going to be initially expecting you to turn dark, so they're not typically going to go for a Focus Blast if they're carrying it. They typically will try to drop your D with Shadow Ball or maybe Nasty Plot. So this is just really to catch Gholdengo off guard. And of course, Mirror Armor is there. And on this set particularly, I've got a little bit of SPDEF investment so that it can eat up Shadow Balls and Focus Blasts with ease before turning Dark type. And if you do get that Shadow Ball drop, of course, you're not going to lose that SPDEF. He's going to lose that SPDEF with the Mirror Armor. And of course, you don't always have to Tera into the Dark type, right? You can just U-turn out and Tera more offensively. But this is a great in the back check to Gholdengo with leftovers, of course, but not of course. It could definitely still run a Rocky Helmet set. With this much D, it's still a great physical check, right, to a lot of things. Rocky Helmet's pretty standard on Corviknight. Here we go. Rocky Helmet. Now on this particular set, do not have defog, right? Maybe you have defog on something else. Maybe you have a rapid spinner. Corviknight always carries defog, right? So they may not see it coming. You don't have to. You could still run defog, but it's in this metagame, Corviknight loves U-turn and loves body press. So this would be like a 3 attack Rocky Helmet, Roost, U-turn, but no defog here. This would be particular set would be best brought when it's a very heavy Gholdengo meta. If you're expecting to see a Gholdengo, this also has a little extra D boost here to really boost up that body press. And finally, classic Gen 8 set, Dark type, weakness policy, agility, bulk up, power trip, Roost, bulky Corviknight here with, you know how it works, right? You get an agility up, you get a bulk up. You can't be prankstered, right? Because you're a dark type now. You can't be prankster, T-waved, burned, anything, or willowed or anything like that. This could run away. Now, of course, there are a lot of things are turning fairy type. Things are terastallizing into dark types as well as fighting types to resist this, but this can run away. Once you get a couple bulk ups up, that weakness policy boost and agility up, power trip can just annihilate you. This is going to be checked pretty hard by things like Great Tusk, but you never know. If you get enough boosts up, you can sweep right through it. So dark type Corviknight, dragon type Corviknight is very good as well. Turning dark, right, you're not initially threatened by those fighting types with Corviknight being a flying type. You also aren't initially threatened by the fairy types. Now, obviously steel and flying is a fantastic defensive typing, and you're also not initially threatened by those bug types. So turning dark from a steel flying actually works very well. You lose that fire weakness, you lose that electric weakness, and you kind of catch your opponent off guard. And really, again, this is really designed specifically with Gholdengo in mind. Let's move on to the next one. Next, we've got Iron Moth. This is an awesome Pokemon, fire and poison type. Now, it does not get Quiver Dance like original Volcarona, but it does get other things Volcarona does not get. First of all, that is a base 110 speed, where Volcarona is base 100, and also a base 140 special attack. That's higher than Volcarona as well. This thing actually has way more options than we're giving it credit for. Grass type Iron Moth is what we're looking at here, because it does get that energy ball. It is going to hit those ground types that it would check Iron Moths for super effective damage, blow them back. It's also going to hit those water types for super effective damage. One particular Iron Moth set that you see a lot, right, it's a Focus Sash lead, because this thing also gets Toxic Spikes. It still gets that Fiery Dance to boost that special attack. You can run Fire Blast, Flamethrower. It also gets Overheat. It also gets Acid Spray to drop your SPDF by 2, which would be great on a switch into something, right? Then you can blow it back with like a Flamethrower or a Fire Blast, or of course an Energy Ball if they're going to want to check you with something like a water or a ground type. And of course you also lose that ground weakness. You also lose that water weakness. So turning into grass works. Grass is also not threatened initially by the ice type. Grass is not threatened by the dark type. You know, things like Corviknight aren't going to be able to check you as a flying type because you still got Fire Staff. So this is kind of your first set to get those Toxic Spikes up as a lead with Focus Sash. Hit things really hard with an Energy Ball. Sludge Wave. It does not get Sludge Bump, but maybe Sludge Wave. Fiery Dance. Another set's going to be that Energy Booster set with the Quark Drive. This one in particular is of course going to be boosting that special attack, even as a timid nature with max speed. You've still got better special attack. It's really good. But with that speed, you're outspeeding everything, right? It's not many things. You're going to need to be like Iron Valiant or Dragapult. This in particular is just an energy booster for attack set as a grass type, right? Just to blow things back that would have checked you initially, right? Fire Blast, Sludge Wave, Energy Ball. Psychic is there for things like Toxapex, for things like Clodsire. Now, there are the options to run just like a Life Orb set because of how good this thing's speed is. I wanted to show you guys that it also does get Morning Sun. It also does get Dazzling Gleam to hit things like Roaring Moon. It also does get Discharge to maybe hit things like Gyarados or Pelipper. It also gets Hurricane. This thing could actually be run in the rain with a water or a flying type. With Hurricane, you wouldn't want to run Morning Sun there, but it also gets U-turn. It also gets Charge Beam. It also gets Agility. It also gets Flash Cannon to hit things like Garganical if you wanted to turn a Steel type with this thing. So there are a lot of options for boosting, gaining momentum. Of course, Heavy Duty Boots is great, but really turning into a grass type and blowing back those checks with that amount of speed and that amount of special offense, this thing's actually a huge threat, and I've seen it run away and just sweep people. I've been swept by it. It's a great Pokemon. Grass is obviously going to be probably your best Tera for this thing. Moving on. Now, I only have one set except for Barraskewda, because that's all you need. Well, there could be 2 sets. Long story short, on a rain team, this thing is absolutely broken. This thing is the reason for water absorb. Tera Water gives you that adaptability. You've got the choice band to hit even harder. You got Swift Swim. This thing is the fastest Pokemon in the game right now, other than like a Scarf Trace Gardevoir in the rain. Banded, Tera Water, Aqua Jet is just gonna blow things back. Liquidation, it OHKOs things like, it OHKOs dragons, right? This OHKOs like Haxorus, this OHKOs Cyclozar, this OHKOs, if you don't resist, like in the rain, you have to be a max defense Dondozo or a max defense Toxapex to barely take 2 hits from this thing. Or you have to be like a grass type Tinglu or something. It just hits that hard. I like Liquidation on it. I also like Waterfall on it for that flinch chance. Liquidation hits a little bit harder, but the flinch chance can come in clutch versus if they do have something to check this thing. Now they're going to need a water. Typically I like to run a water absorb mon on my team for things like this or for powerful water Pokemon. Close combat is there. You're not really going to need it that much. Psychic Fangs is there to shatter screens. It's great. And also to hit Toxapex. Other than that, you're just going to be clicking Waterfall, Liquidation, or Aqua Jet. Give this thing a try. Slap it on a team with Pelipper. Right now they're currently in UU. They may be banned by now. I know yesterday they were still in UU. Ridiculously powerful. I like Adamant because, you know, in the rain, you're going to outspeed, and even out of the rain, you're outspeeding almost everything. This thing is ridiculously powerful. It's going to be OU. Rain is going to take over. I think they really boosted Sun and Hail because rain is so strong. And I think they broke the game by forgetting about this Pokemon in particular. Moving on. Now everybody knows it, right? You see it, you've been swept by it. It's on top of the ladder. Roaring Moon, particularly Steel type Roaring Moon. The way the defenses interact, it's incredible, right? You dodge that Fairy type turning Steel. You dodge that 4 times Fairy weakness. You dodge that Bug weakness. What else do you dodge? You invert that Ice weakness. You lose that Dragon weakness. You lose the Fairy weakness. You lose the Bug weakness. Not to mention all the other resistances that you get, the immunity to poison with the Steel type. Of course, it's even more threatening with Dragon Dance. Once you get that up, you're just going to sweep through things. These are the only, if you're going to run a Dragon Dance set, these are the only moves you need. Iron Head, EQ, and Crunch. They're just going to tear you in half. The Energy Booster set is great for boosting that speed if you would like. They've built Roaring Moon in such a way that you can easily boost your speed or your attack, right? So on this particular set, your speed boost at 370 and just below with Great Tech at 369 and a little extra SPDEF so that you can actually come in and set up on things like a Chi-Yu, for instance. Another set is just going to be that Life Orb set if you don't want to run booster energy, because with that one-off, if you want to be able to switch in, maybe pick up a kill, switch out, come back in later, then set up. Life Orb can be great. Dragon Dance, of course, same 3 attacks, Steel type. This one in particular is an Adamant set with enough speed on it to outspeed those Scarf base 100s like Chi-Yu again. And I put it at 330, you know, to outspeed those other Scarfers at 329, right? Little speed creep. Obviously slapping the rest into SPDEF because it's an actually usable stat. His defense isn't terrible, but you're going to probably want to set up on special attackers. Finally, a choice band set is great on this thing. I still like the Steel type. U-turn, this thing gets U-turn, so that's great, right? It also gets Roost. You can also run Roost on any of these sets if you're not looking for that much coverage. U-turn, Iron Head, Crunch, EQ, it's going to blow everything back. Steel type is so great. This thing hits so hard. And again, if you are in the sun, you can run any of these items in the sun and still get that boost of speed or attack, whatever you want. This thing is top tier in the meta. You just got to know how to kind of play it right, get a setup. I mean, it's like Gen 3 Salamence all over again. It's a very scary Pokemon when you see it on the other's team. A little predictable that it is likely to turn to a Steel type. You still got to be very scared of it and kind of play around it or use it yourself. Can't beat them, join them. Let's go to the next one. There he is, ladies and gentlemen. Goldengo himself. The chosen one, the Steel Ghost type of this generation. Is it as good as Gen 6 Aegislash? I don't know. Is it better than Aegislash? Maybe. That ability is so good. The good as gold ability preventing all statuses. You can't be taunted. You can't be willowed or T-waved, right? Now, Goldengo has 3 Tera types it likes to turn into, 2 that it likes really kind of more than any. I really like both of these, to be honest with you. The first one I want to share with you is normal Tera Goldengo. That's really specifically there only to get that immunity to Ghost type, right? If you're going up against another Goldengo and they're locked into Shadow Ball. This is a great opportunity for you to turn normal. Obviously, you lose all those other weaknesses as well. You lose that fire weakness, you lose the ground weakness, you lose the ghost weak. You get that immunity to the ghost, and you do turn weak to fighting, but right there, you're not initially threatened by fighting because you're a ghost type, right? So they're probably not going to click that. But that's specifically why normal. It's really to check the other ghost types because they're going to want to hit you hard. Scarf Goldango is probably the premier set. Air Balloon is great too. I'm seeing more Goldangos with Recover on them, with more Nasty Plot on them, but still Scarf with Trick is so good. Shadow Ball, Make It Rain, Focus Blast for that general coverage, that perfect coverage, very strong, powerful Pokemon. Obviously here you have the Air Balloon on maybe a fighting Goldango. That's your other type. That fighting is going to resist the dark. It's going to not be initially threatened by fairy or flying because you're initially steel. And of course, you're going to get that stab on Focus Blast to hit any dark type that may want to check you or another normal type that might want to dodge that ghost. So it kind of becomes mind games with Goldango. It's one of the premier Terastallizers, and it can also turn into a dark type, but that's a little, I would probably rather go normal than dark with the way the resistances work. Of course, Nasty Plot, Recover here on a balloon set. Of course, you're always, in my opinion, you're always going to want to run the max speed for those speed ties with other Goldango and to outspeed Jolly or Timid base 80s that hit 284. So there you go. It's mind games, fighting type or normal type Goldango. So many great options here. It's a spin blocker until you Terastallize. It is a defog blocker. It is a mortal spin blocker until you Terastallize with that steel type. Great Pokemon. I could even see this thing in the future being a AV user, which is crazy. Okay, check it out. You probably already know about these already, but it's so crazy, man. It's so crazy. Let's check it out. Let's go on to the next one. Yes, it is time, ladies and gentlemen. Iron Valiant. This thing has a few Tera types it likes to turn into, but the main one that I'd like to show you is actually not the one that I've been running recently, but Electric Iron Valiant's very popular. You've probably seen it on the ladder as well. It dodges that flying type attack, right? Electric's such a good Tera type, being weak to only ground. Iron Valiant actually has really good D. Initially with that fairy and fighting typing is great. You might not even want to Terastallize this thing, but if you really want to OHKO Corviknight or if you want to OHKO Toxapex, this thing turning Tera Electric is going to be great. It likes, on this particular set, I've got Life Orb 4 attack. I don't particularly like to run Booster Energy on Iron Valiant because I like to be able to switch it in, pick up a kill, switch out, come back in, and I like to have that extra power on the Life Orb, maybe even Specs, maybe even Band. Of course, you know, this thing hits on both sides, but not to say Booster Energy is not good. If you want to run Booster Energy, there you go. Calm Mind Booster Energy. You got Swords Dance with Life Orb or a Booster Energy, right? On this particular set, I've got Ghost Tera with a Shadow Sneak, with Spirit Break as its physical fairy move, with Close Combat, of course, for the stab, it's gonna blow things back. On this set, with the Booster Energy, Calm Mind, Tera Blast, T-Bolt, Psyshock, you can switch any of those out for a Focus Blast. This particular set is mixed, the original one with electric type. I really like Brick Break on it. I like Close Combat on it as well. It's gonna hit really hard, but this one in particular was designed for those screens, setting up screens like on Grim Snarl. And sometimes it's hard to get rid of screens when they have a defog blocker in Goldango. Brick Break's gonna take care of that. The other Tera type is Psychic that I really like. Turning Psychic and using Psyshock is going to OHKO Toxapex, it's going to OHKO Clodsire, and it's going to catch a lot of things off guard. It's going to give you enough power to break through those little frailer physical Pokemon that aren't expecting a Psychic type attack from you. So there, of course, this thing is so unpredictable. I like to run mixed, but of course you could run that Calm Mind, you could run that Swords Dance. Of course, you lose all your weaknesses, right? You lose that Psychic weakness. And then of course with Quirk Drive, you can run any other item. You can run Specs, you can run Band, you can run Life Orb. You can still boost any of your 3 offensive. You can boost attack, special attack, or speed if you play around with the natures and the EVs. So this thing is a huge threat. It's got a lot of really cool options. One of the most customizable Tera Pokemon. And you don't even have to Terastallize again because that fairy fighting is so good, but you can Tera into something offensive like Electric, which is defensive at the same time, to reverse counter those things that are initially going to check you in the first place. So Let me know what you guys think about that one. Let's go on to the next one. What is there to say, right? You already know normal type Dragonite, E-Speed. It's all the rage. Pretty cut and dry and straightforward here. You're gonna want your heavy duty boots typically if you're gonna run a Dragon Dance set. You Tera normal, right? You E-Speed. You try to get a couple DDs up if you can with the boots coming in on hazards, and just start. It's a sweeper cleaner, right? With E-Speed. Earthquake is there to hit things that are going to resist your E-Speed. Roost is one option. This one is in particular a adamant set, just to hit as hard as possible with that E-Speed. You don't need all the speed, right? If you're going to be using E-Speed. Other options, if you don't want Roost, of course, Thunder Punch for Corviknight, Fire Punch as well for other steals. Fortress, for instance, with Fire Punch. But this thing, is probably going to get checked by a max defense, Great Tusk. Can run Ice Punch as well. So the other set for normal D-Knight, I think, would be a banded set here with E-Speed just to hit as hard as possible. This is baby Arceus 2.0 right here. E-Speed, Fire Punch, Iron Head. Iron Head just to check those things that might want to switch in to check you, like a fairy type or an ice type. Fire Punch, of course, again, for things like Corviknight. But if you run like Magnezone and get rid of those steel types, you clear out or you weaken things enough for this normal type E-Speed Dragonite. It is an actually great sweeper in the back. It'd be very scary. You're going to need some defensive bulk in this game to check big threats like this. There are a few other things you can run on Dragonite, but really this is just to focus on that E-Speed and the options with E-Speed. You can be Life Orb. So there you go. I'm sure you guys already knew about that one, but it is very scary. That multi-scale just allows it so much setup opportunity, right? And then of course you lose all your weaknesses. You're no longer weak to rocks. You get that ghost immunity. You're not initially weak to fighting with the flying type. So this works very well for Dragonite. Annihilate, water type Annihilate. There are several types that you can turn into as Annihilate. It likes to go fighting. It likes to go dark. It can go normal. It also likes water, right? It just works. Water type Annihilate is working very well in singles here on Smogon and Showdown. It's also, I've seen it working very well over in VGC and doubles as well. It's just that Rage Fist is so scary and so powerful. There are a lot of things you can do with this mod in general. It does get Stealth Rock. It can be an AV user, defensive Pokemon. Switch and keep building up that Rage Fist, get it in later. There's a lot of cool things, but I think the most powerful, most broken set that everybody knows already is either going to be that Taunt set with bulk up Rage Fist and Drain Punch, or that Rest instead of Taunt. When you do run Rest, it does leave you susceptible to Taunt. On the Taunt set, I like a little bit more speed, or you can even run a lot more speed to out taunt other Pokemon that might want to taunt you and stop you. Of course, you want to run that a lot of Spadef here because you're really going to be wanting to set up on the physical side with those bulk ups, right? And then it's too late. Then you just get swept with Rage Fist and you can get all that health back with Drain Punch. Similarly here, you just start clicking bulk up, you take a little bit of damage, and then you rest it all up, and then it's over with Rage Fist and Drain Punch. It's GG's. The water type, now you're only weak to grass and electric. It turns you into Suicune, right? It's hard to hit the thing super effectively, and it's so bulky. Once you get a couple bulk ups up and Rage Fist gets beefed up to 200, 300, everything's getting O-code. And this Pokemon can absolutely sweep you in the back. You can be up 5-1, right? This thing comes in, it can sweep all 5 Pokemon you still. So this can just turn the tide very easily. A very scary Pokemon. I see Annihilate maybe eventually getting banned, or just Rage Fist getting banned, because even without Rage Fist, it's still a cool Pokemon. With U-turn, it gets U-turn. You can ban this thing. I've even seen this Pokemon make good use of Choice Scarf. Great natural bulk overall, and I love Annihilate. Who doesn't love Annihilate, right? Annihilate. And finally, one of the craziest new Pokemon, King Gambit. A very scary, one of the scariest sweepers in the back and Pokemon in general, and one of the very best Terastallizers as well, turning into a fairy type King Gambit. Originally Steel and Dark. You lose that 4 times fighting weakness. You dodge that, right? The poison, right? You're initially immune to poison. Going into fairy, right? They're not switching poison into this thing initially. Really, the kicker here is it's got great bulk, 100, 120, 85, To make that a pure fairy type with that amount of attack, 135, already great power, but really that Supreme Overlord ability is what gives this thing it makes this thing so scary, right? You're obviously getting 10% attack boost every time an ally dies, right? So you bring this thing in last as a late game, in-game cleaner, sweeper, final Pokemon. You got those mind games with Sucker Punch, right? It's got the new move Kowtow Cleave, 85 base accuracy. It doesn't get knockoff anymore, but Kowtow does pretty good with this amount of attack. Iron Head, of course, that stab. Dark Steel has always had really good offensive coverage. You know, they come in, they're scared of going for an attack because you could sucker and kill them, so they try to outplay you, right? You get another Swords Dance up on this particular set, or you just hit him with a Kowtow, or you hit him with an Iron Head or something. But Swords Dance is a cool option to have here. Even if you don't have to bring this thing in last, you could bring this thing in off the bat, and you can click Stealth Rock. You can lead with this thing, and you can click Stealth Rock. You can bring a Focus Sash with this. There's just a lot of cool things you can do with it, but really it functions best switching into a fairy type, losing those defenses, and then even Tera Blast on this with the fairy type to hit other dark types, to hit the fighting types that might want to switch into you. Tera Blast is one cool option. Now there's not a lot of speed, but you don't really need it if you get all that attack boost from Supreme Overlord. And now one of my favorite moves to have on King Gambit is Substitute. The Substitute Sucker Punch combination is fantastic. They're going to think you're going to click Sucker Punch, so they try to dodge you by going for like a Will-O-Wisp, or they try to set up on you, or Swords Dance, or they try to do something fancy to dodge that sucker. You get up a Substitute and it's over with. It's just GG's at that point because they have to attack you. You blow them back with Sucker Punch or another one of these attacks. Maybe even bluff that you don't have Sucker. You sub, then you Tera Blast or you Kowtow Cleave or your Iron Head. And they're like, oh, he doesn't have Sucker. Then they try to hit you on the next Pokemon and you blow them back with Sucker, right? They expect you maybe to Substitute or something. So great Pokemon, very scary. One of the best Terastallize users, like I said. Turning into a fairy type in particular. The thing about all these Pokemon is that they do eventually become a little bit predictable when you start, you know, normal Dragonite, Water Annihilate, right? Electric, Steel Roaring Moon, Electric Iron Valiant, Grass Iron Moth. A lot of them become very predictable, but that's okay because the meta is going to continue to evolve and switch up. And you can change that Tera type to counter what they're expecting. So the game's going to continue to evolve and continue to switch up, and there'll be a new meta. Things are continuing to be discovered, and things are continuing to be toyed with and played with and optimized. So these are just some of the initial Pokemon that I think are good for Terastallizing. There are a lot more, like I said. Drop a fat like on this video. If, like I said, it gets a ton of likes, I'll do a part 2. There's still a lot more that I wanted to share, but I didn't want to make this video too long. So let me know what you guys think about these. I'm sure there are a lot of other options that I missed that you think are great, or maybe you think some of these are terrible or bad, or maybe I missed something, but let me know what you guys think. Please leave a comment, drop a fat like. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Take care, and God bless.